Hi, welcome back to Betty. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson, and today I have a special guest with me, Justin Luter. He's written a book about why scouting works for black boys. Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Luter.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, why did you decide to write this book about why scouting works for black boys?
Well, I feel like scouting, or the Boy Scouts of America, is a tool that's being underutilized, particularly by the black community. And locally and nationally, it's just a program that we should see more black churches, more organizations, youth-serving organizations serving black youth to take advantage of. It's an excellent resource, and I feel like there's a need.
Before we get into why you feel like scouting works for black boys, let's talk about what scouting is. What exactly is scouting?
Scouting is a program designed to, well, there's many different components to scouting, but it's most known for Boy Scouting, which is 11 to 17-year-old boys wear uniforms. They get to go camping and do other activities. If they successfully complete the program, they become Eagle Scouts. And that's one component, that's the most popular. That's the program that they started with back in 1910. However, that's just one facet. There are now several programs. There's Cub Scouting, which is for ages 7 to 10 years of age, and it's for boys. And then we have Venturing, which is one of our newest initiatives. It's only a decade old. It's a co-ed program for high school age students, 14 to 20 years of age. Girls and boys that are very interested in doing outdoor kinds of stuff, rock climbing, ropes, traveling, doing trips and different activities, not just, the usual club activities, more outdoors kinds of stuff. And so those are the traditional programs of Boy Scouting today. They're wide and vast. Kids have, do everything from travel overseas to camp in their backyards, but all of those make up what we call scouting today.
Let's talk about some of the core principles of scouting and why you feel like they're good for our black boys or youth in our communities.
Well, many of the core principles of scouting mimic core principles any healthy community would want to see in their young men in particular, or in their young women for that matter. Simple things like good citizenship, love for a higher power, whether that be Allah or God or whatever religious being you worship, but a reverence for a higher power. Just a sense of duty to one's community, and we call it country, but in essence it's one's community. What you do locally matters nationally, and so those are core principles. Those are what we call values that every healthy community would teach their children.
So why do you think that scouting works for black boys, like the title of your book?
Well, in particular, a lot of the challenges that our young men are facing today are because they're not being taught those very basic values and principles. We've had significant breakdown in our communities, whether it's because of lack of fathers in the home, or it's because of just poor parenting skills, or just socioeconomic challenges that prevent kids from taking advantage of all that there is to offer. And through Boy Scouting, there's a number of advantages that they're offered that they would not have just by playing sports or just by academics. Boy Scouting kind of molds the two together and gives the kid a real unique opportunity to learn hands-on, which boys in particular need. They need to expend a lot of energy. That's why our young men get in trouble in early education a lot, because they like to be mobile, they like to be interactive in their education. And so scouting accommodates that. The kids do a lot of running around and they have a lot of fun. They get to expend a lot of energy, and at the same time they learn. And we take subject matters that would typically be terribly boring, such as geology, and we make it fun through games and activities where you can take a rock and you can learn the difference between sandstone and limestone based on the game you play, rather than sit in a classroom behind a desk and a teacher tell you this is sandstone or this is limestone.
I remember reading in the book where you mentioned that a lot of boys that aren't good in sports, they turn to scouting as another outlet to get rid of some of that energy that they have. What are some other things that you do out with the boys to help burn up some of that energy?
Well, we have a wonderful program called COPE, which is an acronym for Challenging Outdoor Personal Experience. And basically it's a combination of high events and low events and ground games. The events are basically, they would look like obstacle they look like an obstacle course, but it's designed so that kids can one, succeed as an individual, and also work together as a team when necessary to accomplish tasks. So it builds self-esteem in that regard, helps them to learn to work together. The team ethic comes into play, but more importantly, a lot of what they have to do is in the head and not in the hands. So yes, they'll have to swing on a rope or climb something, and that demonstrates the physical prowess they'll need, but a lot of times they'll need to use their mind to solve a situation. And that's not to say that doesn't happen in sports, but one of the key values that we teach in scouting is cooperation over competition. And so whereas ultimately in a sport you have to beat somebody, in scouting the ideal victory is when everybody wins. If your patrol is responsible for putting together your camp, you know, nobody gets to go to sleep that night until everybody's tents are up. The fire is started and everybody participates in the preparation of the meal. So it's very cooperative, and that teaches an ethic that we all must do it to survive. We all must do it to succeed, which are the same values, again, that any healthy community or village would teach their children.
You just brought up a funny thing, and I had to kind of laugh at myself. The reason why I didn't want to be a Girl Scout because I didn't want to sleep outside. Do you find that boys that live in the city, do they enjoy camping?
Every boy has a dream to camp. There's very few boys that say they never want to see the outdoors. Now, when they get out there, they may wish they were back home and with their Xbox. But nearly every boy, you tell them, you know, we're gonna, you know, make s'mores over a campfire. They all want that experience, and so they may not understand that. Yeah, you got to sleep in a sleeping bag in a tent outside, no matter what the weather is. But once they get out there, they all want the opportunity to fish. You know, even if they learn that they hate fishing, every child wants that experience. And so scouting does that by and far, gives them that outdoor experience. And we always use a phrase, you never take the outing out of scouting. And so it's integral to our program. It's where most of our lessons are taught. Not in a classroom format, not in the church basement, but out there in the outdoors. So your scouting group is best when it's taking advantage of the outdoors.
And I could see where you could learn some lessons outside because you have to work as a team.
Absolutely.
You have to make sure that your partner or the person beside you is with you and taken care of. What are some other things that they're learning while they're outside camping?
Well, basically, the best thing that they're learning is how to take care of themselves. Everything from learning how to brush your teeth without a toothbrush, to learning how to wash dishes without soap and water. There's a number of great experiences, and these are not real life things. Maybe, you know, you'll always be able to have soap and water to wash your dishes, but what it teaches you is that no matter what your condition is, there are always resources available to you that you can take advantage of or utilize to improve your condition. And so we want every kid, no matter, you know, if a kid believes that they can change their circumstances, regardless of the conditions they face, they'll think in that way and they'll behave in that way. If a kid comes into a circumstance and always believes that the conditions he faces will be permanent, then they'll behave that way. And a lot of times what we see in our kids, the negative consequences and negative behaviors are a result of, well, these are the conditions I live in, so I'm going to behave accordingly. For example, if I'm raised in a zoo, I'm going to behave like an animal. And so we constantly get kids that will reflect those negative consequences, and this is for all kids. This is for any circumstance. I mean, you can be in Beirut, you can be here, you know, in Brooklyn, New York. It doesn't matter. Anytime a person doesn't believe that they can change their environment and that their environment determines who they are, they're going to act in accordance with what that environment dictates. So we believe scouting, we teach you definitely that your environment is your environment, but it does not determine who you are. And so when you come out there, you learn some fundamental skills that, you know, profoundly change the way you view that environment. You know, two rocks become a tool to make fire, you know. Whereas rather than sit in the rain and be cold, you know, you learn to make fire. So.
Have you found that the most challenging kids in your scouting program, are they from single family homes or homes that are intact with a mother and father there?
That's a great question. I would have to say that there is no one way or the other. A lot of times we come across very strong single parents, whether they be male or female, who take no mess and their child walks the straight and narrow because of it. A lot of times we come across kids who have the perfect life, and they're such terrible, whether tent mates or they just have no concept of sharing and caring, and that it takes a lot of work and effort to get them to understand that this is a cooperative effort. This is not just about you being the best or you having the nicest, things like that. So I couldn't pigeonhole it to one group or the other, one group of parents versus the other. I will say though that single parents, particularly mothers, express a strong need. They realize that their young boys, they want male role models for their young boys, and so Scouting offers that in a very safe and productive environment.
And so how do you reach out to find these little boys to be a part of the Boy Scouts?
Finding the boys is easy. It's usually finding the adult leaders that's a challenge. Yeah, I can go to any corner, any community, set up a campsite, and start talking about scouting. Wear a uniform, and I'll get the young boys to come out, and we can do some interactive games or start teaching some basic skills with ropes and things like that. Usually the challenge is getting adults who've kind of settled in their ways and say, I need you to learn how to camp. And they're like, I'm 40 years old. I'm not, I haven't camped before. And a lot of times, even with men in the military who have camped, they said, I've done all the camping I'm going to do in the service. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. But if you work with us, we teach you that camping is a lot of fun, actually. Some of the things that I mentioned in the book, some of the things we prioritize is that when you camp, cook big meals, no matter how bad things are going on. You can have everybody's tents fell down, rain, every tents are flooded. But if you cook a big meal, somehow people feel better, and they fill themselves up. It works. I can't tell you why it works, but you put some food out. Healthy portions where kids can come back, get seconds and thirds, and they forget that their underwear is soaking wet. So it matters. It makes a difference.
I just can't picture that.
Well, it works. It works. I can't tell you why. I don't know, something about the stomach, the male stomach, something about the male stomach. But if you create that environment, that atmosphere, like, hey, we're all going through this together. Let's have fun while we're doing it. It does wonders for those kids. So I can testify that I'm a witness. I've seen it. Big pots of spaghetti and salad, and next thing.
Oh, you have that kind of a meal?
Oh yeah. We're not eating fish sticks and no. We come big. Fried chicken. That's what I mean.
You eat real food.
Yeah, we eat real food.
We
camp. Yeah. You can't. You don't. That's what I mean. You don't. You have to go big. Go.
Okay.
You make it an enjoyable experience so that despite the things that too many bugs, because kids will find anything to be unhappy about.
Right.
And if they're having fun to start, because sometimes our camps are not fun. Sometimes we work them to death. Move this wood, clean this, do that. But at the end of the day, they know they can look forward to this huge feast, and that makes it all. That makes all the difference. So it's I guess it's a little psychology involved somewhere, but it makes a difference. So
I know in your book you mentioned that some of the concepts came from the Kwanzaa.
Right. Well, Kwanzaa. Some of the concepts are run concurrent with the Kwanzaa principles, but scouting, and what most people don't realize is scouting has an African origin to it. If I could tell a story briefly,
go right ahead.
The founder of Boy Scouting was a British general who spent most of his military career colonizing much of Africa, and particularly during the Boer Wars in South Africa. What he found was that the British conscripts, because how Britain was set up at the time was if you were a lady or a gentleman, you went to school. If you were a poor kid, you got sent to the military. Not much very different from today. But so what happened was these young men were coming, and he felt they were ill-suited for the military life because the climate was hot, and he was amazed at how the young African men raised their boys and what they taught them. Everything from being able to track people over large distances, how to use a stick to navigate through water and pitch of black. The African men were teaching their sons how to take a leaf and turn it a certain way, just bend a leaf, and only they would walk through that same forest area and be able to notice that somebody's left me a message by turning this leaf. And that sounds kind of out there, but this is really what they were learning. They were learning some very fundamental ways to navigate and survive in any environment. And so he observed these, and these were basically rites of passage that the young men had to go through. I talk about the story of Roots, where you see Kunta Kinte in the beginning. And that's the rites of passage that he goes through, where they're taken out of the village. And that, they show him wrestling. They taught him self-defense, but they also taught him these basic things like how to cook, how to clean, how to hunt, and how to grow things, and how to basically apply medicines and different things like that. Those are the things that fathers and villages taught their sons and daughters. The men took the boys, and the women took the daughters. And so he observed this, and he saw how well suited these African young men were, and how they could navigate, and how they were strong fighters, the Ashanti and the Zulu, who he was fighting against most of the time. And he said, we need something like this. So he came up with a concept. He wrote a book called Boy Scouting, and that's where that's where it began. They had their first outing, I think in 1908, and then an American in London and met with him, and in 1910 it became Boy Scouts of America here in the States. And so that's where its inception was. It takes nothing away from Lord Baden-Powell. He came up with a great concept, but nothing is created in a vacuum. And certainly much of the concepts and the things we learn today, everything from the left-handed handshake that Boy Scouts do, it's an Ashanti warrior custom. And the mantra to that is only the bravest of the brave shake with their left hand, because your left hand is your shield-bearing arm, and you have to put down your shield. Your enemy could still hold his weapon in his right hand and attack you with it. So only the bravest of the brave are willing to shake with the left hand. So there's a great many customs and practices in scouting that are attributable to our ancestors. So.
Yeah, when I saw that in the book, I was like, wow, that came from Africa. That didn't come from here in America.
A lot of it is attributed to Native American culture, and there's some more recent additions to scouting, but the early inceptions, like the left-handed handshake, the use of the staff to navigate, those are all directly out of Lord Baden-Powell's experiences in colonizing South Africa, unfortunately.
And so when you meet with these young black boys, do you tell them that?
Yeah, but you don't just hit them with that right away, because they
were like, over their head, and this is like school.
And a lot of them will tell you, well, I ain't no African. And so then you have to go all the way back and do a lot of more explaining. So what we try to do is just start with, learn how to do this, and then I'll show you why it's so important. And then, did you know that this is a concept that your ancestors used, and who are my ancestors? And then you got to go explain that to them. So I just tell you, it's a wonderful program that it's just being underutilized by our community. And the book was written precisely because if I could just convince a few more churches, a few more families to consider starting, not just joining other troops, but starting a unit, and and teaching those concepts, taking the values that scouting teaches, and making it fit, their model, what the church believes or what their organization believes. I just see profound success in it.
What are some of the successes that you've seen from your Boy Scouts from the past?
Well, most recently we've had a number of Eagle Scouts come through our program, and these are kids from social and economic challenged circumstances. This is not kids with very healthy and wealthy families. So they struggle, and to do an Eagle project, a child must recruit other scouts to help them on the project. They have to perform 100 hours of service in this project. So they have to recruit others, and then they also have to recruit the resources and materials to build whatever it is they build. Usually they'll do landscaping, or they'll build a bench. And we've had a number of scouts who successfully did that, and now both are college graduates, and for some reason they both were in the culinary arts, and it has a lot to do with their scoutmaster, who is a big cook. At his campouts, he did huge cooks. So
that's why they're chefs.
Well, nothing wrong with being a chef. So one is did his schooling in Alaska. Well, he did his schooling at CPCC, but then he worked over the summers in Alaska, and he chefed for a resort there. Another young man, he went to the name evades me, but it's a culinary arts school in New York, out just in Hyde Park, I believe it is, and he became a chef there, and now he's down here in Charlotte working at I think Charlotte Country Club or some one of the larger, more reputable establishments here. Where the food has to be good. So he's a head chef there. And so these guys are directly a reflection of men being involved in their lives, telling them they can, them seeing what they can do, because they had to do all of that camp. They had to, learn how to put their tent up, take a tent down, start a fire, put a fire out, whittle, use a pocket knife, use an axe. All of those things they had to learn. Has nothing to do with culinary arts, but what it does teach them is that I can, I can do this, I can do that, and let me do what I want to do. So,
they have a hand gesture in scouting. Don't ask me to show you what it is.
Right,
what exactly does that mean? Because I know I read in the book where one finger means one thing and another finger means something else. Let's go over that.
Well, that's a great question that I probably can't answer right now. It's been a few years since I've I do exploring now, which is a different branch of scouting. But it mimics the fleur de lis, which is citizenship, leadership, and for the third one it evades me. But basically, it's designed to reaffirm the principles of the scouting movement, the aims and methods. Yeah.
I know one of the concepts in scouting is be prepared. Can we talk about that some more? How do you teach kids that concept in camping or in the scouting?
Well, be prepared actually starts before you camp, and that's at the source of the program. The object is that every kid, in order to have a successful camping experience, is to take every step, every possible measure you can to have what you need to go out there. So surely we'll teach you how to brush your teeth if you don't have your toothbrush, which a lot of kids forget to brush their teeth, bring the toothbrush. But the idea is to plan, to take the time to plan. It's and it goes back to a thing we've lost, which is delayed gratification. And planning is a big part of delaying gratification. And so what we have to do is tell a kid, well, how many meals are we going to have at camp? What are we going to do? How long are we going to be out at camp? Well, if we're going to be overnight, then that means if we arrive in the morning, we're probably going to have lunch, dinner, and then breakfast the next day. So let's plan for lunch, dinner, and breakfast the next day. What do those meals entail? What are we going to have? We're not at your house where you can just go in the fridge and pull out whatever you see. We have to bring that with us. So you have to plan. If you guys have to agree, do you want spaghetti for the Saturday night dinner or Franks and hot dogs or whatever it is, you have to plan. So you have to be prepared. It's easier, I can pick you up, take you out there, and then we'll have to figure all that out when we're there. There's no supermarkets, no local bodegas to walk to, so you have to plan, you have to be prepared. And that's what being prepared is all about. And hopefully it translates from just planning to actually a state of mind where a person realizes in every situation they try to do their best to be aware of their circumstances, which is a form of preparation and form of being prepared. If I'm in a hostile environment, not knowing that means I'm unprepared to handle any challenges that confront me, but being able to say I'm in a hostile environment, where are the exits, or what can I do to protect myself, or how can I make this not a hostile environment, how can I calm this? And that's from just being aware and being in the moment, so to speak.
Do you find that many boys don't want to wear the scouting uniform to school?
Yeah, well, we those of us that work in scouting professionally, we have an understanding that after 14 years of age, it's almost impossible to put a boy in a scout uniform. Yeah, it's just a challenge. He's in the teens now. He's got the peer pressure is at its highest, its height. So we realize that venturing doesn't seem to have that problem because it's co-ed. So if the girls wear the uniforms and the guys want to be around the girls, they'll wear the uniform. So there's an advantage to that. But as far as Boy Scouting, our goal is always try and get the kids in as young as possible. You get a child in scouting at 11 to 12 years of age, even 13, depending on their maturity level, and they'll do extremely well. But the uniform is an integral to the scouting program, so they have to wear it. And so we try to get them in young when they still feel comfortable, and the whole cool factor hasn't totally, distorted their perception. So.
I want to touch on something else. Your book was excellent, and please go out and find this book, Why Scouting Works for Black Boys. It's a very good book, and a lot of things that we touched on is in the book, and a whole lot more. I want to ask you today about a program that you have with Scouting. I was at a luncheon with you earlier today, and thank you very much for lunch, where you talked about the Explorer program that you have. Let's talk about that for a few minutes before we close today.
Okay. Exploring is 61 years old. It's a program that started nationally, career education-based program. It's co-ed. It's for high school age students 14 to 20, and it gives young people a first-hand experience with professionals in the field. For example, often if a kid wants to be a doctor, most kids don't have a doctor that they can go and speak to on a regular basis. Through Exploring, we arrange it so that they meet at the hospital once a month, and they'll actually get to ask professionals in the field, whether it's dermatologists, OBGYN, nurses, orderlies, whatever it is. Those people will come in, and you get to speak and have frank conversations with them. What kind of education do you need? Do I need to leave the state to get a good medical education? Are there scholarships out there? Any kinds of questions are related to academics and the profession. Professionals can answer best. And the key to that is that these people are doing it every day. They're passionate about what they do. They're excited, hopefully. And so they give the best answers to those questions. Whereas, if I heard it from a relative about how great a cop is or how great a lawyer and attorney is, that's not the same as having an attorney tell me this is what I do, this is this is how I make Googles of money, or I do it because I love it, and yada yada yada. So
if someone wanted to know more information about what all you're doing with Scouting, how would they contact you?
They can reach me directly. You can call me. My phone number is 704-342-9331. That's my direct line. You can reach me in the office, or you can go to www.mccscouting.org. Okay. And you can.
And you have an office here in Charlotte.
Yes, our office is on 7th Street and Charlottetown Road. Okay. It's a statue of a small boy we call the Unknown Scout out front. Well, that's not a bad thing. That's how American Boy Scouting got started. So it's not a long story, but it's a story to it. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. We are out of time, unfortunately. Do come back again. I do want to do some more work with you with the Scouts. And if you want to know any more information about Scouting or what we talked about today, you can go to my website at www.abetteryouthshow.com. And thank you so much for joining me today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.